So yesterday there was a lot of confusion surrounding Assassin's Creed Mirage and the rating that it received from the ESRB. You may have seen headlines like this: Assassin's Creed Mirage has been rated adult only by the ESRB for real gambling. This is something that we saw on a number of official sources like the official Microsoft/Xbox store, where Assassin's Creed Mirage was listed as adults only 18+ due to intense violence, blood and gore, sexual themes, partial nudity, and real gambling. And something that I didn't point out in my last video covering this is the fact that a number of people spotted the adults only label on the official Ubisoft Forward stream. Right here, somebody on Reset Era posted the AO rating popped up on the Ubisoft stream before the presentation too, and the response here reads, "Wait, you're right, I've tried timestamping it. If it doesn't work, then the logo shows up at the beginning of the Ubisoft showcase at 14:36. Doesn't seem like it was a mistake after all," was the assumption, because you have to wonder how this happens by accident both on the official Xbox store and on Ubisoft's official stream, where you can in fact see the adults only rating prominently featured on the video itself. And clicking on the stream itself and going to the correct timestamp, you will see right here 14:36 adult only 18+ in USA and Canada. And hell, this popped up on my stream. Here I am streaming this, but I was distracted by something. I was probably looking at the chat and didn't even spot this, but this was apparently meant for Assassin's Creed Mirage. Not only that, in the UK's official Xbox store listing, Assassin's Creed Mirage was rated as PEGI 18+ because it contains real gambling alongside extreme violence. So at this point, people assumed, okay, this has got to be official then. This cannot possibly be a mistake when so many official outlets are listing this game to feature real gambling, and that caused a good amount of concern. For my part, I figured there was a chance that this may be a mistake, because there's no way that Ubisoft would ship Assassin's Creed Mirage as an adults-only game, because it would not be able to get listed on major platforms like Nintendo's eShop, the Microsoft/Xbox store, and the PlayStation store, because those storefronts straight up don't allow adults-only games. They are banned from those platforms. You can host adults-only games on Steam, but even if you did, you'd see diminished sales because those are not prominently featured, and you'd really have to dig and search for them to find them. So my theory was either there was some kind of major miscommunication behind the scenes that led to an adults-only rating that just doesn't make sense, given that past Assassin's Creed titles have never been adults-only, even the ones that include microtransactions and everything. Or Ubisoft, for whatever reason, are pushing monetization so far beyond what they've already done, and including some kind of, I don't know, real money gambling element, that the ESRB decided that they should label the game adults only. But that just didn't seem very likely, given that plenty of AAA publishers are trying to teeter the line between what's considered, what's the legal definition of gambling versus what they're able to get away with microtransactions and loot boxes. And if Ubisoft did try to push monetization to a point where even the ESRB, who are pretty lenient on the kinds of gambling-like elements we see in video games, were like, this is a step too far, we're going to label this adults only, at that point Ubisoft would have to take a few steps back and try to dial down whatever monetization scheme got them that adults-only rating. But I theorized that some kind of miscommunication behind the scenes was the most likely scenario. And the likelihood that this was all some kind of mistake became greater when people noticed that on Instagram, the social media post for Assassin's Creed Mirage featured a rating pending label instead of an adults-only label, potential indication that the adults-only rating is not, in fact, officially the rating that Assassin's Creed Mirage has, and that maybe there was some miscommunication behind the scenes. And ever since this whole story began to spread, word eventually got back to Ubisoft and the Assassin's Creed development team, and they have finally responded in a tweet published on September 12, 2022 at 10:30 a.m. Here's what the official Assassin's Creed Twitter page posted. Following the announcement of Assassin's Creed Mirage, some store pages display the game for pre-orders with an adults-only ESRB rating. Well, not just store pages, but also your own official stream. Ubisoft, which is what especially caused so much confusion because that made it seem that much more official. While the game is still pending rating, we want to reassure players that no real gambling or loot boxes are present in the game. So for those who are concerned about that, you can breathe a sigh of relief, though that doesn't mean there isn't some form of microtransactions that's going to be included in the game. While the Microsoft Store or Xbox Store listing for Assassin's Creed Mirage now says rating pending, though likely mature 17+. If you go to the UK listing on Microsoft Store, you'll find that the game is listed as PEGI 18, and while real gambling is no longer featured as part of the game's rating, it is confirmed here that the game will contain in-game purchases. That hasn't been changed, so it seems likely that the game will contain microtransactions, and we'll see how far those are pushed, because even if microtransactions don't necessarily contain loot boxes, there's still potential for lines to be crossed and for microtransactions to be egregious and to affect gameplay. And with past Assassin's Creed titles, yeah, microtransactions have locked things like sped up experience gain in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which is basically an accessibility feature that was paywalled. I would have preferred the pacing of the faster leveling that they paywalled, but I was not about to pay extra for a feature that should have been included in the game. XP boosts and, the ability to unlock map markers and stuff like that. Gameplay affecting elements that aren't crucial per se, but, they still should not be paywalled in a game that's already charging $60 to $70 for a premium AAA video game that isn't free to play. So I'm not here to tell you to drop your guard when it comes to potential microtransactions that may be included in Assassin's Creed Mirage, but in terms of loot boxes that you pay for with real money in order to gamble for the chance of obtaining an in-game reward, or real gambling involving spending money to earn more real money, or, that's the hope with odds stacked against you, so you'll likely lose your money. That stuff won't be featured in the game, so insists Ubisoft and the Assassin's Creed official Twitter page. So at least that's good. But you've got to love how this tweet is acknowledgement that players do not like gambling or loot boxes in video games. They are using the lack of real gambling and loot boxes as a positive form of marketing, and yet with certain other games that Ubisoft publishes, they're more than happy to promote loot boxes as an optional fun feature that enhances the experience. And you've got to love how this tweet straight up correlates real gambling and loot boxes, because they are kind of cut from the same cloth. But with other games featuring loot boxes, Ubisoft will pretend that loot boxes are in no way, shape, or form gambling, whereas here, they understand that the label real gambling made people paranoid about the possibility of loot boxes being in the game, alongside potential monetization systems that may allow you to win back more money than you spend on gambling, more sort of casino-like gambling where the reward isn't in-game items and stuff like that, but rather real money. And the fact that they're correlating the two here kind of goes to show that the company is well aware that loot boxes are in fact gambling, but when it's convenient for them, they'll try to market loot boxes as something positive that isn't gambling, that isn't psychologically manipulative, and that is fine and dandy and optional. And, in the case of VA, they'll insist it's quite fun and quite ethical and like Kinder eggs and appropriate for kids. The kind of doublespeak that goes on when it's convenient for the companies is still something that must be criticized. Ubisoft suddenly treating real gambling and loot boxes in video games as something that isn't desired by players, and the absence of them something to be promoted is just hypocritical when you consider the way they've promoted in other games loot boxes and gambling as something that isn't nefarious. But for those who are looking forward to Assassin's Creed Mirage and how it's an Assassin's Creed game that goes back to its roots instead of trying to stick with the more Odyssey, Origins, Valhalla style gameplay that many fans have kind of grown tired of and don't believe to be kind of the right direction for Assassin's Creed, at the very least you can rest easy knowing that paid loot boxes and paid gambling won't be in this game, or so this tweet claims. Companies have lied before. In the case of Assassin's Creed, I don't believe there are going to be paid loot boxes and paid gambling, but do expect at least some form of microtransactions, and hopefully they'll be nothing too intolerable or nothing that lacks important or, really nice and neat and cool accessibility features and some stuff that should be just included in the game behind a paywall. But only time will tell. Until then, though, this is everything you need to know about the adults-only rating situation. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on this whole confusion that momentarily happened, and whether you're looking forward to Assassin's Creed Mirage and whether you think it has the potential to kind of bring back Assassin's Creed from what feels to me like just a stale state of affairs. The series just hasn't captured my attention until Mirage promised that it'd go back to Assassin's Creed's roots. I'm more looking forward to Mirage than any of the other stuff they've announced personally, but share your thoughts in the comments below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.